I found an Instagram reel of the most fuckable Muppets rated by this person. I don't know who they were. They just popped up and they were doing some ratings. They didn't rate like every single Muppet. It was like a handful.
So to give them credit, just go out and search most fuckable Muppets,
Yeah,
and
if you could
it'll
do
be
that.
fine.
Yeah, if you could just go Google that, that'd be great.
Whatever you find is what Roses is promoting right now.
And so, like, I was telling Matt, like, she rated Gonzo and Kermit, the usual, right? That's the usual. But
yeah,
what would we rate? And just for reference, Gonzo is a 5 out of 5. All right, glad we got that out of the way. What would Marjorie the Trash Monster be? What is her rating?
Oh my God.
She is in fact a trash monster, and we need to keep that in mind.
I do want to. Okay, we have often called you Marjorie the Trash Monster on this
very
recording,
similar.
so I think we really need to separate you from Marjorie
right now. Yes, right now we are separating Roses from Marjorie the Trash Monster.
They're very, very, very separate. Okay, Marjorie the Trash Monster. Okay, so the first thing, fucking this one's easy. She's just gonna lay there.
Yeah.
But I bet she's gonna show a lot of enthusiasm. She's gonna she's gonna do what they say, topping from the bottom.
Okay.
So my thought is, Marjorie the Trash Monster, you'd think because she doesn't move, she's not gonna move a lot. She's gonna be a 1. But I think I think for her lack of mobility, she makes up for by going to work in other areas.
She knows the limitations.
And she knows the human body.
Yeah, she's very wise. Marjorie is very wise, very smart.
So I'm going to say, like, she's not going to be the best lay you ever had. I'm going to say, but it's going to be fun. So I'm going to say, like, 3.5. What do you think?
I was going to say 3.5 or maybe 4 for the dirty talk. The dirty talk.
Whoa,
dirty.
Okay.
Do you get it?
Eat my sludge, she'll say to you.
Also, extra points for having 2 little, like, rat friends. That's just extra people.
Well, what about the Fraggles in general?
I think they're kids.
All the Fraggles are children? No, Uncle Matt isn't a child.
Okay, well, that's
Fraggles ages.
This is what we do in our spare time. Well, yeah, how old are the Fraggles?
they're all teenagers.
Oh, they're okay. So Sesame Street is like children. Fraggle Rock is maybe teenagers. And
okay.
Muppets are adults.
It says okay. I don't know what the I don't know what the authority of this is, but there's a forum where they talk deeply about this on MuppetCentral.com, and it says that they are all in their upper teens to 20s, and like Red is 28, but they age slower.
Why is Red randomly 28?
So even though they're teenagers and adults, you've got to think of them as kids and teenagers. So don't fuck the Fraggles.
Don't even think about it, even though Moki does look like she's 30.
Don't think about fucking the Fraggles. It doesn't matter how hot they are to you.
Go back to wanting to fuck the M&Ms, okay?
They're adults. The M&Ms. Don't fuck the M&Ms are adult. Moki looks like a mom.
Moki does look like a mom. I think Moki is the oldest Fraggle.
Well, traveling Uncle Matt is the oldest.
But we don't count him because he's not present. He's the missing uncle who is never there.
That guy goes nuts in bed. That guy just...
And just so we're clear, we did separate Marjorie the Trash Monster from myself. I will not just lay there. I just wanted to put that out there. But I am a little trash-like, so you can expect that.
Did me or our audience need to know that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Also, there's a character called Archbanger Fraggle. Archbanger.
Who the
Archbanger
fuck is
Fraggle.
Archbanger?
He's the head of the Pipe Bangers. So I think we know where he ranks. welcome back to Save Your Game. I am Matt Aucamp, and this here, once again resuming her title of Marjorie the Trash Monster, is Pushing Up Roses. How you doing?
Oh my god, Archbanger Fraggle is so cute. He has like a big old beard. He's so cute.
He's a cute old man.
And he's played by or performed by one of my favorite puppeteers, which is Jerry Nelson, which I think is great.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that only increases his fuck up. But we're still talking about this. Listen.
Sorry, folks. We love the Muppets, okay?
Hey, Roses.
Mm-hmm.
You been playing anything lately?
Oh my god. I'm so angry at everything all the time.
Oh, no.
So what you guys didn't know about last week is that after we finished up our Cabernet discussion, I realized that I had gotten a terrible ending. Awful. Like we we compared notes. Matt got this amazing ending. I'm like, wow, I would love to get that. So
this is like Crimson Diamond all over again, right? Where I got that special epilogue and you didn't get it.
And I didn't get it. I'm like, what is happening here? So I am chipping away at it still, trying to get certain characters to like me, trying to get I'm a little stuck because of the save slot situation, because I can't go back to where I really need to be. It might be beneficial to just start over. But yeah, I just wanted to update you guys that I got a terrible ending. Absolutely awful. I could not believe what Matt was telling me at the end. So I hope that inspires you guys to give it a look, because I do think there is something special about like wildly different endings like that. Because it did reignite me a little bit, right? It reignited a little bit of my interest.
It sounds to me like this might be a good ending, bad ending, golden ending scenario, right? Like,
you got the golden ending, hands down.
Yes, definitely. And I don't know if you got the good ending or the bad ending, or, you think you got a terrible ending, but...
Well,
is it?
I say terrible because that's how it made me feel. I don't know if... You're right. I don't know if that is the worst ending that there is. Because, I guess the worst ending is you die, right? That's for any game.
Okay, yeah. If that counts, yeah.
My character was still alive, but she was put in a really bad, like, unethical situation. She kind of got trapped into it.
Yeah.
And I think it's because of a bug, if I may.
Okay, yeah.
There is something you need to find later in the game. You know where it is, you're told where it is, and you're told what to do with it. In my first game that I fucked up, I was able to get this item and retrieve it, but I didn't finish that game because I killed someone. I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
When I restarted, I went to the location. I could not get the item. Could not get it.
That's so strange.
It was not. So
again, it's like sometimes when you reload a save, it flips a switch on all your other saves, and it's like, oh, you already did this.
Yeah, there's definitely
in certain ways, but not in other ways. It's very strange. And I do want to point out there was no day one patch. And so a lot of this is frustrating, but a lot of these bugs are still hanging out there.
I'm sure they'll release something.
Well, when you go to, they seem a little unaware of some of the bugs, because when you go to their like discussion page, they're openly soliciting people submitting their bugs, and the ones people talk about, they seem like, oh, interesting, like they seem like they haven't heard of them, and it's like, well, how could you play through even once this game without encountering these bugs? But maybe they haven't played it vanilla, right? Like they've only played it with their developers tools on, and they just have not just like played through beginning to end since they created it, which is a mistake.
Yeah. I'm sure they will. Like, it is a good game. I actually really like this game. It has very positive reviews on Steam. It's got around 182 reviews thus far.
Oh, wow, really?
Yes.
I didn't know it had this level of popularity. I kind of thought we were out in the wilderness here, but I'm really glad.
People like it. But if you look at the reviews, they are talking about the bugs. It is not just us. It is a very buggy game. And that sucks, because I want to do well at this game. This is a game that when you have a game where your choices matter, you need to have a working game. That's just how it is. Like there are buggy games that I play that I can get through, that it's just kind of like Quest for Glory 5. That's a buggy game. It's still buggy. No one ever fixed it. But do I play it and can I win it?
No
Yes.
one cares about it enough to do like a fan fixing bug.
No, of course not.
Like
I'm just saying it's buggy, but it's not game breakingly so. So if you're going to have limited save slots, like if you're going to have only 3 save slots, then your game can't be buggy.
Right.
You know, because you're making that decision based on how you want the player to play your game. But if you can't progress, if it's broken, if the saving is broken, then you got to give us unlimited. I'm sorry, then I want unlimited save slots so I can go back. You know, it can't be both. But that being said, I still like the game. I still think it's very fun and very well written. I do hope that, and I do recommend it. Just know that there are bugs and they need to be fixed because they're game breakers. They're not just like Bethesda characters like twirling into the air, and that's really funny, right? These are game breakers.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I'm still playing it on my Steam Deck, and I do want to say for the viewers, anyone interested, I think it plays better on the Steam Deck than it does on the computer. That's my opinion. Yeah, I tried both.
I think it's still not verified for the Steam Deck, so that's a good recommendation. Hot tip
from Pushing Up Roses. All right, what have you been playing?
So after we talked about, we mentioned this game for a moment last episode when we were talking about adventure RPGs, and it's interesting that this was called an RPG in some of like the reviews and forums that I read. It's the game Heaven's Vault by Inkle.
Yeah, you've mentioned that before. Yeah.
It's very much more like I could see why somebody would call it an RPG because you are making decisions, you are choosing where to go. Where you choose to go is going to have consequences. The dialogue that you pick is going to have consequences. You are inhabiting the role of an archaeologist named Aliyah, who is being followed around by a robot companion who she names Six.
Oh my god, I love robot companions. Sorry, do go on.
Well, and you play. It's in this world. You exist in this world that's like a bunch of moons. I don't think any of them are actual planets, but a bunch of moons encased in a nebula. And you, as an archaeologist, are summoned to like this academic's office where one of her professor of robotics went missing. And you start tracking down this professor, and you find he's left this trail of really old artifacts pertaining to the culture before the culture that you're in. Like ages old artifacts. And you start questioning, why was this man, this roboticist, out here doing archaeology work? This doesn't make any sense. And so you and your robot companion have to travel on a wooden spaceship down like these beautiful rivers of nebulonic. That's not a word. Maybe it is. These nebulonic gases between moons, and discovering long abandoned dead moons with old archaeologically significant sites on them. And besides dialogue and exploring, your other main mechanic is that every artifact you find and ruins that you find, they all have ancient writing on them. When you find one of these, it'll open up a separate menu where she will break it into words, and you have to choose from a limited set of what you think these words could be. So then if you find something and you're like, this says, heaven ring. And then later on, you find something else that has a similar word. Like you find a gate with this on it and a god looking upwards. And it says the same word from heaven ring and then blank. You might be like, heaven gate. And then she'll say, I am now positive that the word heaven is correct. Okay. Or if you find another thing that's like a knife, and it's like blank knife, and the first word was the one you used for ring, and you try to put that in, she'll be like, I don't think ring was ever correct, and then it'll wipe it from the other object too.
Oh, so interesting.
You're kind of going through trying to use what you can make of the symbols. Like I've kind of noticed a few things. Like, okay, this symbol at the beginning of a word means an adjective. This one means a verb. This one means a noun. Or when this symbol is present, it's referring to a person. But when it's at the end of a word, it's referring to something that applies to a person rather than the person themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, oh, these 3 slashes in some way mean many. So 3 slashes can be present in the word forever or the word us, in the sense that like both of these signify something that is multitudinous, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really interesting in that, and the writing and story are also just kind of fascinating. I am a
It looks
couple hours
cool.
in. It looks cool. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
by Inkle too, who make very interesting adventure
I
games.
see that. I see that they made
Mhm.
Around the World in 80 Days kind of homage game in 2015, which is kind of my jam. And so I'm kind of surprised that I didn't know about that. That's really cool.
Well, their game Overboard in 2021 was fantastic. It is you have just gotten away. You've just murdered your husband. You're on a cruise ship.
As you do.
You've just murdered your husband, and now you have to get away with it.
Oh,
While on this,
I wanted to play. I remember this. I had wanted to play this, and
yeah,
then it just got away from me.
it's like a reverse whodunit, and you kind of keep going through this. Like you die or you get caught, and the day starts over again, like a
Oh,
time
cool.
loop. And then now you know where certain characters are going to be, and you know which strategies work and which don't. And so you're just kind of trying all these different things to get these different endings, and the ultimate ending, which is you
Hmm.
get away with the hot man and all the money, and you don't get caught for the murder, and nobody else gets blamed. Like
It's like a
that's your
How
best ending.
Ketchum, but it looks like Agatha Christie. It's like the floor mat of Columbo, but it looks like Agatha Christie.
Okay, I don't know the floor man of Columbo, but yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's exactly that.
Perfect.
So Heaven's Vault, just to wrap this up, it's got like a sort of an Egyptian vibe, not really ancient Egyptian, but sort of like
It's think old. Just think older than that. It's not ornate like Egyptology. That's
well,
not really what it is.
some of it is. Um
But like it looks
I
like
would
when
say
you're
it's
like
like
going around, it's not.
20th century Egypt is some of the vibe. It is like the vibe of maybe the architecture and stuff, but some of the old cultural artifacts have a lot of Egyptian or even maybe just South Asian vibes.
Sure.
It's I don't know. It's a really pretty game. The characters are like illustrations that fade into each next animation. So rather than watching, a character sway their arms as they move, it'll jump from the character in one stance to their character in another
Hmm.
stance and like fade between the two. It's hard to explain, but it's
Yeah.
an
It's very
animation
it's almost
style that
similar
takes a
to
second to get used to. Yeah.
it looks a little it looks a little bit like rotoscoping. It looks kind of a little similar to oh my god, the train game. Uh the
Oh,
fuck.
yeah,
Where there's like
fuck.
a murder on the train. It's not Orient Express. The Last Express. The Last Express.
Yes.
That's what I'm thinking of.
I knew what you were thinking of, but I could
Yeah.
not think of the um
Obviously this is a newer game, so it has more polish. It's more clean.
I
Kind of
could see
reminds
what
me of that.
yeah. I can see what you mean, though. Again, the animation is going to take a minute to get used to because
Oh yeah.
it's almost like if you take if you take like a 2-second animation and cut out all the frames in between
Right.
second 1 and second 2, and they just fade. The one frame fades into the other. It's kind of like
Yeah.
that. Again, takes a minute to get used to, but it's a really interesting game, and it's a really cool story. And I suggest it's called Heaven's Vault.
You know how I have the genre of grand adventure, and I
Yeah.
don't call every adventure game that. This looks like a grand adventure to me. And just to give
Yes.
like an opposite, to me, Locomotive was not a grand adventure. That was a closed circle. So when I'm playing like a closed circle game, like Colonel's Bequest, Dagger of Amon-Ra, that is not grand adventure to me. It's an adventure game. It's just not like grand adventure. This looks like grand adventure where you're really traveling. Broken Sword, that's grand adventure,
100%. This has Indiana Jones vibes up and down.
Yes. I just wanted to put that out. I don't know why. I'm obsessed with these like little mini genres.
It also reminds me for some reason a little bit of the story themes of his Dark Materials. There's definitely like a religious but technological thing going on here. Another thing you learn really early on, just to set some of the sci-fi of it all, is all the robots in the world, in this nebula, are they're not built by humans. They are found underground.
Okay.
So they were built by somebody long ago and unearthed. So that gives you some sort of hint about like what this game is going for, I think.
Cool.
To me, that really put together the aesthetic of, okay, this is what I'm expecting.
Well, I'm going to check it out as soon as I'm done being frustrated with Cabernet. I just want a better ending.
It's a good follow-up to Cabernet because there's a lot of choices and there's a lot of character development and there's a lot of reading.
I'm fine with that. Totally. Is it voiced?
There's a narrator.
Okay.
Who speaks sometimes, and she's really good.
Honestly, I'm down with it. I miss the old days of like Final Fantasy games where it's just a bunch of text. Let me read it, please. So yeah, what are we going to be talking about today?
I thought we'd just talk about the stars, the moon, the sky, the clouds.
Yeah, that's not the plan at all. That's not what we discussed.
Wait, we're talking about Sanitarium from 1998?
Yes, I did it. I did it, everyone. I persuaded Matt to talk about Sanitarium with me.
Oh, fuck. Well,
dude, my birthday's coming up, so we're going to talk about all the games that I want to talk about.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, so let's play Sucky Legs Reno and talk about Sanitarium.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Save Your Game. I'm Pushing Up Roses. This is my very special co-host, Matt Aucamp. Hello. Hi. So how did this happen? How did I persuade you into doing Sanitarium finally?
Well, you orchestrated a car wreck. And I was driving, I flew off the side of the highway. I woke up in a mental health facility with my face all bandaged, and all anyone would tell me is, you are going to play Sanitarium with Roses. You're going to play Sanitarium.
But did you remember your name? Did you have amnesia when you woke up?
I did not remember my name immediately, but some little kids in a pumpkin patch told it to me. So
were they weird looking? Were they weird looking children?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Everything went to plan.
What the fuck is this game? Okay,
let me say that. Let me say before you say anything. I was telling a colleague, one of our mutuals, about this, talking about the pod. I love making you play my favorite games that I know you're going to have a reaction to. It cracks me up so hard. Okay, go ahead.
It's so strange to me that you love this game because
I love it.
Number one, it is isometric. You hate that.
I know.
Number two,
I know.
Has a maze. You hate that.
I know.
Number three, full of logic puzzles. You hate that.
I don't get it.
Number four, bad voice acting.
Which I kind of like. Let's be honest.
I don't think you hate that. But...
I played Dagger of Amon-Ra. I love this shit.
So this game was made by Dreamforge Entertainment, not Entertainment.
Entertain. Well, they can't all be winners, okay?
And like they this team never made anything like this. Like this Sanitarium was a huge hit in 1998. This team before that and after that really only made top-down RPGs. And they never made like none of them. I looked up every major like person that worked on this game, like the lead designers and lead artists and stuff. None of them ever made anything again. Like they would work on they'd work on a Diablo game, or they would work on an expansion to a Fallout game, but they would never really like make something big again, which is interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. I do love this game. I know that there are logic puzzles, but I don't think there is like an egregious amount. There are some that I'm like, ew, I hate this more than life. Like I hate this so much. I also want to say I believe I read the post or listened to the postmortem on this, and from what I understand, this is going to make sense to you and everybody listening. The developers had different ideas on what the game should be.
Okay.
And so it all got in there. Yeah. So it's like, so this game is in chapters, but each chapter is very, very different. And the way they tie that in is kind of, you know, Matt was foreshadowing a bit. You wake up, your character wakes up. Well, he doesn't wake up, does he?
It's hard to tell because it's hard to tell.
Yeah,
you see some flashbacks in which he has been awake since his accident before the beginning of this game, but it is clear that the beginning of this game is where he, I guess, actualizes.
So your character does have amnesia. You wake up in a psychiatric facility, and you can't remember anything, and so it's basically the drastically different levels are basically all parts of kind of this hallucination that you're having, which I think is really interesting. I actually really like the way they tied it together. That being said, when you have a game that is full of drastically different chapters, you are not going to like them all. That's not how that works. You know, each chapter really is a different story, isn't it?
It is basically a collection of short stories that are either horror or sci-fi or a combination of the two, and they all tie into each other either thematically or just through reference. Right? Like somebody will say something about a character that's going to be in story 5.
Yeah.
Like Max will be reading, Max's main character, he'll be reading a comic book starring a character that he will later become.
Correct. And that character has significance because it ties back to like his childhood.
And there's some other shit, like every story involves, and this isn't really paid off, but every story involves some sort of disaster with water. Every story involves dead children, which does make sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Every story involves a mad tyrant who is manipulating a circumstance, allowing people to be hurt or killed for their own gain, which makes sense thematically. But
it's kind of like each story is different, but it's keeping in line with the same like characters and archetypes. You actually are still Max. You're in different bodies in these chapters, but you are technically still Max going through these little stories. And yeah, there's, like you said, there's this villainous character. They all represent, you know, the same character that's going to be revealed in the end.
So can we do this in like order of the way the chapters go, but with Max removed and his whole story at the end?
Max. I love his voice acting.
If we just pull out all his chapters and we talk about them as if they're one solid story at the end, and in the meantime we talk about all the hallucination chapters.
What? Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
I have no idea how to talk about this game.
I know. Well, though I do want to set the scene for the game, and that is as Max. Like the game opens up and you're in this mental health facility, and it's supposed to be horrifying. There's people talking to themselves, there's blood on the walls, things about to explode, and there's a man like banging his head against the wall over and over, leaving blood on the wall.
It's just a little disturbing.
It's meant to be disturbing, though. When you look at him, the terrible voice actor that voices Max goes, "Diagnosis crazy." And you're like, okay, I get how bad this game is going to be right off the bat.
How dare you? I do like this game. I just want to put that out there. I think it is a good game, but go ahead.
There's no excuses for his horrible quips in the midst of really serious subject matter.
Sure.
And and so also the controls of this game are horrible. You have to hold in the right click the entire time, because it's the right click creates an arrow, and as you move that arrow to different sides of the character will move in that direction. And then you use the left click to interact with stuff. You always have to look at everything before you can interact with it, and you cannot skip dialogue until it's the second time you've heard it. So anytime you solve a puzzle, like you see a solution you see a lever, and you're like, oh, I need to pull that lever. You have to watch Max. You have to sit there while Max talks about the lever for a few seconds before you can pull the lever.
And Max's voice acting is pretty not good. I can understand like being like, well, that's going to set the tone for this game. I think I'm used to it, and I think to me, it's become, well, that's just his voice to me now.
And everything moves so slow.
It does.
Roses,
it does.
Do you know how I got through this game?
I don't.
So this
pizza?
Is my second.
Were you eating pizza through it?
This is I ate pizza at one point during it, yes. But this was my second time playing it ever. My first time was years ago.
Yeah.
I downloaded a cheat engine to speed the movements of the game up, to speed the entire game up, so that I was moving at like 5 times speed the whole time. Which also was really hard to get used to. It was really dizzying because everybody's doing everything at that level of speed. So when people are just standing there doing their idle animations, like swinging their hands back and forth, they're banging their head on a wall. It's happening so fast.
That's
also
funny.
People are talking at the same rate, so they're doing something while they're talking at a normal speed, and it doesn't line up at all. Like, it's like crazy that you would be speaking so slowly while moving your hands in these very erratic manners. Anyway, so that's how I played it. Anyway, so okay, first chapter, I guess second chapter is you are, I think you start as Max, right?
You start as Max, that's right. So you get yourself escaped from this burning down psychiatric institute, and you are kind of transported via this statue. You find a statue, and the statue transports you into this little tiny village. And something about this village is just a bit off. You'll notice right away that the children look like abominations.
Right. There's no adults anywhere.
There's no adults, yep. Which I gotta say, the first time I played this game, I did find it scary. I wasn't sure what to expect when I booted up this game.
I think I found it creepy.
It is creepy, yeah.
And everybody's talking about mother, and they won't really talk about what happened to the parents. They keep alluding to a pumpkin patch that everyone's a little anxious about.
Yeah.
You find one kid, Susan, dead in the ground.
Carol.
Yes.
I think it was Carol. I'm not sure it was Sue. But yes, you do find
Carol's dead.
Child. Yeah.
And everybody and the other thing everybody's alluding to, or you find a bunch of like writings alluding to a comet.
Yes. I really loved the weird kind of religious mania themes of this chapter. I thought it was really interesting. I wanted to learn more, because you go through this chapter and you find, like I said, you find like diaries and stuff like that, and articles, and that kind of puts the story together. You also notice that the children bear resemblance to plants, to put it plainly. Like one has like a stick for branches for a leg, or leaves, and it seems like they're slowly turning into foliage.
Yeah, and they all are happy about this. When you discover
Yes.
that that might be the case, they all seem excited about turning into plants, and they all have a specific plant they want to turn into.
Yeah.
Um, you
Also, the
also
kids
yeah,
are, even though like the game kind of it starts you and you think these kids might be bad guys, they're actually not. They're just children.
yeah.
They're bratty. Some of them are nice. Yeah, they're just children.
So you're going around this little town talking to all the children forever. Forever you are talking to these children. There
It's
are
long,
like
yeah.
12 children and each of them have it's like 10 dialogue options to ask them about. And again, you can't skip through dialogue that you haven't already heard. So wait, yes you can, only in dialogue, not in looking at things.
Oh,
Um
okay. I was
but
gonna
it
say I
is
thought you
yeah.
could.
You can skip through dialogue, but you can't skip through him talking about stuff he's looking at. And
Okay.
you have to look at every kid before you talk to him, like you do with everything you interact
That's
with.
true. Yeah, you do have to look first.
You get some hints through all the stuff you find about all the adults were kind of abusive in one way or another.
Mhm.
You get some other things that, like,
Not all of them though, but there are abusive. I don't know if all of them were though.
we don't hear about any of the adults that aren't.
That's true. That's true.
So not all of them likely, but we hear about the preacher who was abusive. We
Mm-hmm.
hear about the Driscolls who were
Yep.
abusive.
I liked that story. I liked figuring all that out.
And somebody was it the Reverend who killed Carol? I don't know that that's a spoiler because
No, I wouldn't worry about that. Gosh, I don't remember who killed Carol.
one of the adults killed Carol.
Yeah.
And that might be a third adult. So there's some abusive.
It's actually really
adults here.
sad. It's a really sad chapter to start with.
And interestingly enough, because you escape chapter 1, well, I'll get to this in a second. Eventually you track down, you do a terrible combat sequence.
Terrible, awful.
You fight a bunch of birds and then with a scythe, and then you fight like a jack-o'-lantern, or like a scarecrow man with a pumpkin head.
It's quick, so it's not like it won't take long, but it's not great.
And if you die, you just start back at the beginning of that little bit, and everything you killed is already dead. So, especially when you're moving at 5 times speed, pretty quick.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
You dive quicker because everything can kill you so before you've had a chance to react. But so you find out that there was an asteroid that hit ground and mutated, I guess, some vegetable matter, who became sentient and started mutating the children to improve them, to make them better.
Yeah, because humans are the problem.
Right. And interestingly enough, you end that chapter by exploding a generator.
Yeah.
Which is what was taking place in Max's real life at the end of the last chapter.
Right. Mm-hmm. So that the game is meant to kind of pose this question of, is this reality or not? It's clearly not. If you ask me, it's like clearly Max is in his head somewhere, right? We look like a patient, so I think it's safe to assume that this is not real. And for whatever reason, he is either dreaming this or imagining it or disassociating, I think is a good way to put it.
He has a lot of trauma, which we explore. Yeah. Which seems kind of unrelated to the conspiracy that he is unraveling, which we'll get into all this later when we talk about Max's chapters. But a lot of these seem to touch on either the conspiracy or his trauma, or sometimes a little bit of both. But it's interesting because the conspiracy shouldn't have driven him mad. You can see how the trauma might have. And I'm just using the language of the game. Like, I wouldn't normally call somebody mad in real life.
Of course, yeah. No, I think he was. I don't think this is a spoiler, because I think you learn it real quickly in chapter 1. Even you were clearly in a car accident.
Yeah, and I don't understand why that puts you into this disassociative state. But We can talk about that more when we talk
Sure.
about Max's chapter. The next fantastic world you go into is... I was leaving it for you.
Oh, sorry. Do you want me to say the next Max chapter or the next chapter?
No, the next
chapter?
fantastic chapter. So,
but they're all fantastic. Matt, please, you're
fantastical,
confusing me.
fantastical chapter. The next one's the circus.
You think that's the next, like, fantastical?
Yeah, it goes from the kids to the circus. There's a Max chapter in between.
Yeah, there is a Max chapter in between. Okay, so so in the circus chapter, which, oh my god, I love circus anything. I love this chapter. I love circuses in video games or carnivals or whatever. The really interesting thing about this chapter is you don't play as Max, you turn into his younger sister, Sarah.
Which is very strange when it first happens.
When it first happens, it's very strange. But man, I love that chapter. It's so fun to me. I love like jugglers and clowns and creepy. It's a creepy circus. It's a death circus, let's be honest. You would not go there to have a good time.
No.
Because this is a horror game. Whether it scares you or not is beyond the point. It is still horrific in nature. So the whole circus is not great. It's on like an island surrounded by water, and there's like dead people floating in the water. But interestingly, Sarah, the little girl that you're playing, she doesn't really care. She seems to be having a pretty good time. She's like, yay, a circus, wee.
It's very strange. Yeah, even when you look at dead bodies, she's like, ew.
Yeah, ew.
So yeah, you basically just go through this circus. You're trying to help them. They are all being snatched up by there was a squid boy in the freak show who escaped. And once he hit the water, he's been growing and becoming more powerful. And he's just like snatching people up and I guess eating them.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And because of that, people are having a hard time surviving on this little island. They can't really get extra food or water, really. So everything's kind of going to shit.
Yeah, it's hard to tell why. Do you know why? Was it just a flood that caused them to be stuck out here?
Yeah, I think it was just a flood.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything more to that.
Yeah. There's some clues as to what Max is going through. Like you get your fortune told here, and somebody says that evil forces are conspiring against you, and you possess a solution to a problem. I don't think, and you have some flashbacks, which we'll talk about when we talk about Max's stuff. But
yeah,
other than that, it's just kind of like a spooky little point and click adventure.
Yeah,
where you're trying to find and defeat a squid boy. Like that's pretty much it.
It's still like it is still. Yeah, that one's pretty dissociated from I think the rest of the things. But like the game does have its themes and its story, but I also think it is just trying to be creepy at the same time and provide you with entertainment. So they're not like all cohesive. You know what I mean?
It seems like it might be a metaphor. It could be, because I don't think it's either a metaphor for what Dr. Morgan is doing to people, or it's a metaphor for, like, the Squid Boy is a metaphor for cancer taking people, like it took his sister. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell what this is a metaphor for. It might just be a spooky little story by itself. And the only thing that's important about it is that you play as Sarah, who is Max's dead sister. And then you play a short little chapter where you are, which maybe we'll talk about in the Max section, but you are still playing as Sarah, walking around Max's childhood home.
Oh man, I really like that. I really, really like that whole level or chapter. I think is really spooky.
Yeah.
And disorienting, and I really enjoyed that one. That's the one that's the most heavy on the story. You're going to get a lot of story about Max's past with that one.
That's kind of what, yeah, you're right. That's kind of why I'm thinking, let's save that until we're done all the silly chapters.
Yeah.
So, the next crazy chapter Is
that the Grimwald?
Grimwall, yeah.
Grimwall? Oh man, that I love this game. I'm a cheerleader of this game. I think it's extremely entertaining and interesting. But that chapter is gross.
It's
So
just yucky.
yeah, it's just yucky. Like now you're in the body of a comic book character, of a comic that Max read as a child.
A 4-armed cyclops with a
Yeah.
horn in his head.
Yeah. And you're around other cyclopses. And this, I will give it credit. This chapter does fit the themes going on of like there's a kind of a villain character controlling all these other characters. Young, they're not kids, but pot eggs. Young eggs are like being taken. So it does
called
fit.
Children a lot of times. Yeah.
Yeah, they call them children.
They're called children because, and it is like, yeah, it is a Cyclops who is sacrificing Cyclops children.
Right.
And this I'm unclear on what his actual plan was. Was it to rule both insects? Because, okay, there's an intersection between the Cyclops world and the insect world. You're walking around an insect hive, a yucky insect hive.
Awful. It's so gross, you guys. The floor looks like organs.
Everything is squelchy.
Everything is squelchy and fleshy, and
yeah.
sounds like you're walking on cornflakes, and I don't know why.
and you talk like this.
The children.
Because you're supposed to be a superhero, but you're not. Yeah. You're like a weird alien man. I don't know. This and you solve puzzles by like manipulating strange machines. Yes. That are all logic puzzles, but like weird ass logic puzzles.
They are weird. This
like
is
you poke
maybe
a dead fly.
Yes, you do. This is my least favorite chapter. I don't like it aesthetically, and I don't like the puzzles. I didn't think they were that difficult, so yeah. But yeah, I didn't like it.
Not so the evil Cyclops Emperor is merging Cyclops children with insect DNA to create like a hybrid race. And again, I think he might be trying to use an age-old conflict between the two races to conquer both, but I'm a little unclear about like what his ultimate goal is. It's some villain stuff. He's trying to do villain stuff. The last wacky chapter is
I don't know what it's called, but that's got to be the Aztec chapter where you're playing Olmec.
Yes,
there's a Aztec god. I don't know how. So this is probably the chapter you're thinking, why would Roses like this? This is a lot of logic puzzles here. I think I'm just really into the vibe of it. It's dark. It's really dark and weird and harrowing. I guess it doesn't make a lot of sense to be there, but I do like that it's there. I don't know why.
It's very strange.
Strange game.
It's just strange that you are in Aztec. You are in the Aztec world, and your name is Olmec, which is a different culture.
Yeah.
Like the Olmecs were a Mesoamerican culture that was like in the BCE era, just below the Gulf of Mexico.
But it's just your name that's Olmec.
Your name is Olmec.
Right.
And the Aztecs were, I guess, in a slightly, a larger but an overlapping area of modern day Mexico. And the Aztecs were around like during Spanish colonization, so like 1300 to like 1500, right? It's just very strange. It almost seems like it is treating it like Olmec culture. A lot of the symbolism is very Olmec.
Yeah.
But they're using the Aztec god Quetzalcoatl as a character.
Yes.
And you are a different god.
Yeah. It's kind of a mishmash for sure.
You are a different god called Olmec. It's just very strange. It's just very not a lot of research was done, I don't think.
It's still it's strange enough for me to like it. You know, it's almost like a
Okay.
Rob Zombie movie where I don't think those are the best movies, but they are
Uh-uh.
so strange. I just can't
Yeah.
they're intriguing in this very weird way to me. You know, something's a little off.
You're also on an island surrounded by impure water.
Yep. Water's a big
There's an
theme.
evil god that's killing people. So again, has the same themes as everybody else,
Mhm.
as every other chapter. And you just you have to collect like the totems of power or something to
Yeah.
defeat this evil god Quetzalcoatl. Again, kind of straightforward, except for the moment where you go into the maze. Do you want to talk about the maze?
Oh my god, fuck that noise.
And you have to solve a bunch of puzzles to get through the maze, and you have to like navigate it. If you go certain
Yes.
ways, the floor gives out and you die and you start over. A lot of the paths that are the correct path have like timing based electricity zapping across them,
Yeah.
that if you get zapped you go back to
It
the
looks like an
beginning.
MC Escher maze because it's like
Yeah.
everything's on a different level. It's really
Yeah,
confusing.
it absolutely
Ooh.
sucks, and
It
I'm
sucked.
gonna
Yeah.
tell you, I skipped it by loading an old save. I got so annoyed by it. I
Okay.
just loaded an old save and went to the final chapter.
Fair.
Um,
That's fair.
so yeah, so that's the weird stuff. Now we take you, dear listener, all the way back to the beginning, where you wake up as Max in a mental health facility. Your face is all bandaged up.
Mhm. The
Uh,
facility's like on fire. It's falling apart. And he doesn't remember anything. You don't know your name at this point, and you're just trying to find a way out.
So yeah, through all these, you also do a little bit of research as you're walking through. You start to learn a little bit. You learn about a guy named Dr. Morgan. I can't remember if you learned anything else about yourself here, but then a lot of the patients speak about stuff you're eventually going to find. Like
Mhm.
Lenny talks about getting in trouble for eating a pumpkin from the pumpkin patch, which means he
Right.
ate a human. Martin talks about blood-sucking insects trying to destroy the world.
Yeah.
Um, there's all these like references to stuff you're going to see, and uh, you make your way to this like floating office in the middle of the like a tower
Mhm.
with like an expandable bridge. It's very strange how this place is laid out. It is laid out in a way that isn't realistic.
And I think that's on purpose. I think it is laid out impossibly to show that you're in almost a dream world hallucination, that this is
Right.
a fantasy, it's not real.
Even this isn't real.
Yeah,
Um,
correct.
so after the generator explosion, this is on the other side of the chapter where you're in the pumpkin patch. You wake up in the recess yard, and you are the only survivor out of all the people you just met.
Yeah. Which I think is such an interesting
Hmm.
thing. I think that next chapter with Max in the facility where you're in the courtyard. I think it's even called the courtyard, and you're talking to like the nurses and stuff. And I really liked that chapter because
Yeah.
one of the nurses says something like, "Are you making up stories and situations and scenarios to help you get through what you're surviving currently?"
Yeah.
So that always kind of stuck with me, even though it was said in this very cheesy way, because it is a little cheesy. All the voice acting is cheesy, but I found that so interesting, and that stuck with me forever. It's just like, oh, interesting. It's like it's like Max is in survival mode, and
Yeah.
even though he's maybe concussed, that was my assumption, is that he's concussed and everything he's doing is a hallucination or dream, but he's creating scenarios to help him get through, and that's how
Yeah.
he survived the generator explosion.
You know what line stuck with me?
Hmm.
Um, when he's in the pumpkin patch and he goes, "Slice and dice,
Oh
baby."
my god.
Um,
Well, I'm glad that stuck with you,
it
Max.
is it is interesting that some of the nurses are nice to him and some of them are really mean to him and like
Yeah, that's
really
about right.
speak degradingly to him. It's like interestingly, yeah, it's interestingly realistic. Like it's not, they didn't make all of them like monolithic. They made them
Yeah.
all have different personalities. So at this point you've kind of learned your name is Max.
Mhm.
You were a doctor. You had a relationship with Dr. Morgan, and you know something about DNA V.
Mhm.
Also, you know that there's some disease that was killing children, kind of very nebulous at this point.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. You're just kind of learning everything. Some things are kind of told via flashback. Some things are told via finding an article or
mhm.
like a TV clip or something like that. But yeah, that's a good call. You find out you're a doctor. You had a colleague named Dr. Morgan, and that's what you know. And at this point, we have no reason to suspect anybody, but I was very skeptical of Dr. Morgan in
Same,
that chapter. They kind of
same.
I think they pushed that a little bit.
I would say if you don't want any spoilers, now's your time to skip ahead a few minutes,
Yep.
because this is when it's going to start to unravel.
Mm-hmm.
Because this next one, during your circus chapter, you get a lot of flashbacks to you as Max, and you learn some things like you learn that Max has a wife named Jennifer, who he, I guess, hasn't seen in a while. You also learn that Max had a little sister once
Mm-hmm.
upon a time
Yeah.
who got sick and died, and he blames himself because he wasn't able to find her clown doll.
It's really sad.
Mhm.
It's again, it's done in a cheesy way, but I'm like, oh, I'm sad.
Yeah.
You know?
You also learn about the terms Mercy Corp, and Hope Drug.
Yes.
And this is when we get to that we were talking about, that house, that ghost house of his childhood.
Yeah.
And in it, you're still Sarah, and you're
Yes.
walking around. The walls look like cardboard. You're seeing actual scenes of Max and Sarah's parents, and
Yeah.
Max is a child, and they are like ghosts.
Yeah, they're like ghosts of the past. They're memories only. So in that chapter, that's where I think you get the most exposition for
Mhm.
who you are. Even though you're not playing Max, you're playing Sarah. You find out that Sarah died. You find out the extent of the grief that the parents were going through. And I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the chapter where you kind of find that this is why Max became a doctor, is because he
Right.
lost his sister at a very young age to something. I don't know if they really specify what she died of.
I guess I thought
Yeah.
it was cancer, but maybe it was just an unknown mystery disease.
Yeah, I'm not sure they really imply too much on that,
This
but
game makes up a lot of diseases that wouldn't really happen, like tainted meat killing only children and killing children
right.
across the entire world, or like some
Yeah.
DNA disease, again, that only kills children, that you can only solve by inflicting pain on humans. Like, it's
Yeah.
very, they have this very strange understanding of medicine and diseases
Yeah.
in this game.
And I think that's also, well, you know what's really interesting? They make
Hmm.
diseases just very almost disgusting like,
Yeah.
which I think is so interesting. I lost both of my parents to cancer, and it's just a really interesting way to look at disease, just this disgusting, awful,
Like a
almost
monster.
yeah,
Yeah.
like a monster, almost imaginary thing that
Yeah.
you can't even fathom.
That might
And
come from meat, or it might come from pain,
yeah.
or it might come from it just arrives in your life
Yeah,
and
yeah.
spreads. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it makes sense to use meat, because we are meat. You know what I mean? It's a
Yeah,
very
yeah.
fleshy, weird thing to kind of bring in as symbolism. And again, correct me if I'm wrong here too, because sometimes the ghost house blends into other chapters for me. But is this where is this where Max remembers he's in a car crash?
I don't remember. Let me flip around and see. Well, first place I see the word car crash in my notes.
I
I
think
didn't
it
write it down.
is.
Okay.
Like, I think that you as the player, you already figured that out.
Hmm.
But I think at some point, Max also figures out that he's in a car crash.
You have now, so now you come back to Max, and you have sort of ascended into these like towers.
Oh, I love those. Again, it just looks so creepy. I love the
Mhm.
setting,
And again,
the
it's
settings of these
impossibly
games.
made. Like, you find
Yeah,
levers and you pull them, and towers extend, like walkways extend.
yeah.
There's a horrible logic puzzle where you have to get
Oh, the pipe. Is it not the pipes? The what is that?
there
The
are
wheel?
10 there are 10, and there's a ball. So there are 10 claws holding onto
Yep.
a ball, and you can
Hate it.
release 3 at a time. And you have to, math it out how you can have one extra in exactly the right place. So
I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
I just clicked until I got it. I put absolutely zero thought into that puzzle, and eventually I just got it.
Yeah. Basically, yeah, you're trying to get into a room and you have to knock down the doors with a big heavy ball. Why it's there, no one knows. It's just kind of impossible.
Yeah.
And this is where you kind of learn Dr. Morgan is the bad guy, and I don't know where this comes from, but some point, it's the key. There's a passcode to the door that is youth hides the key to salvation.
Yeah, I remember that.
So you start to realize Dr. Morgan is doing something with children.
Yeah. Which fits the theme of all these chapters. Like there's obviously suffering children being sacrificed for something.
Yes, he's hurting children in some way to cure a disease, and he's also inflicting pain on monkeys. I think this is where you learn that.
Yeah, I think it is. It is.
And so then it's during the Grimjack chapter where you learn that that Dr. Morgan has a cure. That's what he calls hope, and he hopes to profit off of it. The Mercy Foundation is supposed to profit off of it.
Right.
After so at the end of the Towers chapter, you get caught, right?
Right. Yes, you get caught, and then you get put in a crematorium, I think. Not a crematorium, a morgue.
There is a crematorium down there, but you just get put in the morgue because I guess he thinks you're dead and you're not. It's very strange. Why did he do that? He's a doctor. He knows if you're dead or not. He could have just killed you.
Yeah.
And so in this morgue situation, you find Dr. Morgan's office. You burn a body for seemingly no reason, and it gives you a clue. Like I can't.
It's for a puzzle, okay?
I couldn't find any clue that indicates that number 7 was the body. Like that you were supposed to learn what was in body bag number 7, and that it would be important.
Yeah.
It's just you can click on it, so you do, and he picks up the body and puts it in the incinerator, and then you're just like, oh, a fake eye. That's so weird. There's also a talking tree, which is a weird, there's weird humanoid trees. That's another weird theme throughout the game.
Yeah.
Tying back to the, I guess, children turning into plants.
It's like nature versus science, type of a deal. Yeah.
What actually happens here? You find out that Dr. Morgan heads the Mercy Corporation. He wanted to profit off the hope drug.
Mm-hmm.
You, Max, didn't want him to.
Right.
So you quit.
Did you quit, or were you sabotaged by...
You quit, and then your wife convinces you to stay.
Okay,
it's going to help people.
Right.
And then you confront Dr. Morgan with this, and he teleports away.
As you do.
As you do. In a room surrounded by Aztec stuff. So, of course, the next chapter is the Aztec chapter. In the Aztec chapter, your flashbacks show you that you discovered the secret to curing the disease.
Right. The disease that Sarah had. I think is what... Yes, I think that's what's... Yeah. So that is what's kind of driving this. He became a doctor because of Sarah. I think she had this disease, and he dedicated his life to finding a cure for this.
And you learn that Aztecs never suffered from this disease. Like that, they say that randomly somewhere in one of the cutscenes earlier. And then he's looking at like Indiana Jones footage of somebody exploring Aztec temples, and he goes, "I've got it! That's the solution!" And then
That's right.
He jumps in his car and drives away and runs off a cliff.
Yes. And that was sabotage, right? Dr. Morgan sabotaged him.
It is implied, yes.
Okay.
And now your final chapter, after the Aztec chapter, you are flipping back and forth through all of your personalities.
It's pretty cool. I like that chapter.
Solving a quote-unquote game that Dr. Morgan is putting you through.
Yeah.
And you take it over from here, because this is where it all wraps up, and I'm a little confused.
It is, honestly, yes, it is a little confusing. I wonder if they did the last chapter the way they did to, I guess, wrap it up, because in this chapter, you can actually switch. You're not you switch between characters to solve puzzles. So like you
Yeah.
get a little like a little icon where if you want to be Grimwall now, you can be Grimwall now. And maybe you
Right.
need him to solve a puzzle to get to the next thing. And yeah, it's kind of this weird conglomeration of everything that you went through. So there's a clown part. There's like a little circus area. Is there a bug area? I swear I've repressed all of those things. I hate them that much.
I think there's all of them, yeah.
Gross. Disgusting. And so you get through all of that and you end up in this weird how do I describe this? It looks like a chessboard, but it's not.
And Dr. Morgan's a floating head, like taunting you.
This I really think is like dissociation, where you are in your body fighting to stay alive, and that is kind of the symbolism of it, is you are fighting to stay alive. And we don't know what that looks like. If you're concussed like that, I don't know. Oh, and you did want to say you didn't understand why he was kind of having this trauma. I think the car wreck concussed him completely and put him in a coma.
Oh,
I think Max,
so even the asylum is not real. Nothing
correct,
has been
yes.
real. Nothing
Correct.
even a little bit has been real. Okay.
Yes, correct. So he is in a coma trying to survive, and his brain is kind of manifesting all of these things. It's his brain is helping him figure out what happened, and it's helping him survive.
I kind of thought that later on. I kind of thought the asylum stuff was like real, but full of kind of like his own hallucinations, hallucinogenic interpretations of it. And so I thought he was coming out of the coma I think you're right, but I thought he was coming out of the coma at the end from like something like when Dr. Morgan attacked him and put him in the
oh, I see. No, I think he was in a
morgue.
coma the whole time.
Okay,
that's my
that
opinion.
makes so much more sense. I looked up something. I looked up a little like plot summary, and I think I cleared something up for me. So the hope drug that Dr. Morgan discovered does not cure the DNAV virus.
Right, it's like useless.
It slows it down. So it appears it's being cured, and so he can make more money off of it. But Max cures it, and that's why he gets
right. Dr. Morgan is a corrupt doctor. He just wants a way to make more money and to get prestige, whereas Max wants to, is a good doctor and wants to cure this disease, which I believe took his sister, and that is what he dedicated his life to.
So then Dr. Morgan gets arrested, like in the epilogue. Sorry.
Are we going to talk about that weird last character, setting?
Let's totally cut what I just said because I didn't give any warning. So if you were okay with spoilers up till now, but you do want to play the game, I'm just going to say one real quick spoiler. You can jump ahead 1 minute. The ending is that Dr. Morgan, Max wakes up, reunites with his wife. Dr. Morgan does get arrested for tampering with the car. Resigns from Mercy Foundation in disgrace, and Max becomes like the new head of the Mercy Foundation. Yeah,
it's a good solid ending. The issue is this whole game, now that I've kind of explained it to you, this whole game takes place inside your head.
Yeah.
Which I think makes sense. Even though it's called Sanitarium, I don't think you are in a sanitarium. I think you are trapped in your mind.
Yeah.
And that's what's really happening. And literally every chapter is symbolic of something, or you are in this coma just desperately trying. Your brain is trying to move you forward.
Yeah.
What did you think about that last gameplay, that last chapter with the kind of the mirroring situation?
I mean, that I hated. I
hated it too. I know.
I like the skipping back and forth between characters thing. Even though
I did too. Yep.
It can be a little tiring when a game changes its setting and its characters entirely and its like mechanics entirely, because you can just be like, oh, okay, I have to reorient myself. And I get that a lot while playing Sanitarium. Like I just find myself just like struck by a wave of exhaustion and either needing to put it down or rededicate myself.
That's
But
fair. It's a lot.
yeah, the last puzzle sucks. I mean, it's like the maze in that it's just
Yeah.
it's a type
I
of
still
yeah,
kind of found it interesting visually because it's clear in that final puzzle that's when you're trying to wake up from
yeah,
your coma. You're trying to wake up. I think it even shows like an IV or like not an IV, but it has a visual where yes, you are in a bed trying to
right.
wake up from a hospital. And I like that. I think the reason this resonated for me so much is the surreal nature of
Hmm.
it. Everything really doesn't make sense. It is
Yeah,
completely surreal. It's weird, and it gives me a vibe. It gives me like this is weird and I really like it. And like the story, like it is a little confusing. Even we kind of were like, "What? Why did that happen?" But it does I think it does have like a focal point in this story that's easy to understand. You know what
yeah,
I mean? Like you know
right.
who the villain is, you know what's happening, you know you've been sabotaged, and everything that you're thinking is just to get you out of the coma, which I think is kind of cool and an interesting way to look at survival, you know?
Right. So what do you say makes you love this game?
So that's all going to be very subjective because I know you don't love this game, and I
No,
get
I
that.
don't hate it.
It's more of a cult
Um,
classic, I think, at this
I don't
point.
hate it. There are
Yeah,
things I really like about it. There's very little I love about it,
that's fair.
but
Uh,
I like it. I like it pretty good. Like if I were rating this game, if I were reviewing this game, I'd give it, I'd give it in the 70 range.
yeah, yeah. I think I love it because I found it when I was kind of young at a Best Buy with my dad, who was still alive at
Hmm.
the time. And I played it in full when I was going through something where I was feeling a little crazy and like out of my mind a
Hmm.
little bit. And that struck with me. It just that all the symbolism of like kind of going out of your mind and not knowing what's real and what's imaginary and trying to survive. It's a dark and harrowing and creepy feeling,
Yeah.
but it really resonated with me, even though it was very
Okay.
segmented, right? Not everything cohesively fit together. I would
Right.
cut the Grimwall um, chapter completely. I don't think it adds a lot. If anything, it gets a little redundant, you know, but I could tell the devs really had a theme that they were like
Hmm.
driving home, you know.
I also have a little bit of trouble understanding, even though it was a pretty good chapter, I have a little bit of trouble understanding what the metaphor was in the circus chapter, like we were
I
saying.
don't know if there was
Yeah.
or if they just wanted us to play as Sarah to get a sense of who the character was and maybe what a special character she was to Max.
And there is that moment where he does say to Sarah that she'll be better in time for the circus or something of that
Yes.
effect. So that
Yeah.
like I get how a chapter like that would have a meaning to Max. I just don't think it holds together as a metaphor.
Yeah, I don't know if it does, and I wonder if I mean I might be giving it too much credit, but I also kind of wonder Max is in a coma, brains are weird. It's just
Hmm.
going all over the place. You know, it almost makes sense that it doesn't make sense given Max's circumstances and
Yeah.
trying to like stay on getting your brain to stay in focus and fighting and surviving, you know, for your life.
Yeah.
You're going to have things that maybe don't make sense in your brain. But yeah, I do think it leans more because Sarah liked the circus, she was sick, and I wonder if this is the circus of death. You know what I mean? Because she is sick.
Hmm.
I wonder if this is just a very creepy, harrowing circus. Although she's into it. She's grateful for it to be
Yeah.
there. Yeah. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Did I explain
I
why I
think
liked
so.
it?
I think so. I think definitely. Do how many times did you say you've played this game?
Like a lot, dude. Like to be honest, I didn't even revisit it. I'm just recalling all of it from memory. So that's how many times I've played it.
And when you don't find it tedious. You don't find like the speed, the
I do.
way, the mechanics. Okay.
I do find it tedious. I think there's something about the vibe and how it makes me feel that apparently I'm just forgiving it because it is tedious. I don't like walking back and forth with
Yeah.
the mouse. It is slow. The voice acting can be very slow too. These are not characters that are in any rush to talk to you. So it is. I do think it's tedious. I just like it anyway.
And I think they do it, like, it is, when you say walking back and forth, they do a lot of putting different objectives on different sides of a walkable map.
Yeah.
And you kind of just got to keep going back and forth.
You do. There is a lot of backtracking in this game.
Really annoying. Do you think, now that you know that that cheat engine allows you to speed up the walking, that you would do that next time you play?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I do like replaying it every now and then, to be honest. But yeah, it is slow. It's extremely slow. I just wonder if, like you described, because all the idle animations are also 5 times the speed, I wonder if that would like take away some of that surreal nature that I like, some of the creepiness that I like, and make it a little too comical. It's like, that guy's banging his head at the wall at like 90 miles per hour. Like, I don't know if I would find that distracting.
Right. I mean, it is. I'll say that it is definitely distracting, but it is also, like, I found it worth it for just how
I get it.
slow.
So are you surprised that this is one of my favorite adventure games?
No. Well, yes and no. No, because I think it definitely has a vibe that screams PushingUpRoses.
Yes.
Yep. But it has a lot of mechanics that do not. So, so I think it's surprising and not surprising.
You want to hear something interesting that I associate with this game?
Yeah.
I was listening to a lot of Alice in Chains while playing Sanitarium, and now I can't separate them. Which I think is interesting because like when I played it, or because sometimes I would listen to music while I played adventure games, because not every adventure game has background music. The original King's Quest is a good example. I always played music while doing that. So I was listening to a lot of Alice in Chains, and what's really interesting is they have a music video for I Stay Away, which takes place in a circus. And now I really I really associate them. Like, they give me the same feelings. You know how like music is that powerful where it'll attach itself to a memory?
That happens to me with a lot of I mean, I don't listen to music while I play adventure games. I listen to music while I play all other sorts of games. And I have so many records that are completely attached to the game I was playing while I was listening to them.
Absolutely. I talk about this in my Space Quest 6 video, but that's around the time I had gotten the Space Quest collection, and that was around the time my dad was going to pass of cancer. So I remember so vividly playing Space Quest 6, then going to bed and putting on a Cars cassette that he had recorded. So now I associate the Cars with Space Quest 6, and I cannot separate them. They are the same to me.
Here's a very strange thing. Because it's a game that I've never played, or not that I've never played. I've played it. Game that I played very little of. And an album that I've listened to so many times, which is the Postal Service album, Give Up. When I first listened to it, I was playing a Ninja Gaiden game for the Xbox 360, I think.
Yeah.
As I don't play Ninja Gaiden.
I know, like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, but my stepdad had it, and I was just looking for something to play, and I was looking for something to play while I listened to music, and I just discovered the Postal Service, and for some reason I was playing Ninja Gaiden for a couple hours. And for whatever reason, even though it was only like that one time, even now, if I hear a Postal Service song come on, I think of jumping up walls and throwing shuriken in Ninja Gaiden.
That's wonderful.
It's a very strange association.
Yeah, I mean, the Cars and Space Quest 6 is a weird association. Like, what? Why? It's just
Yeah,
because, yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
what I
yeah,
was
yeah.
listening to at the time. After I couldn't listen to music while playing Space Quest 6 because it's
Yeah,
voiced. But like, I would go to bed and then listen to the Cars, and that's what happened there.
yeah.
I'd like to pose an idea.
Yes,
Um,
please.
I would love to do a podcast episode where we really talk about games that affected
One
us
more.
or that helped us through something.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm going to be honest, Space Quest, the collection, that helped me through my dad's death, and they're super connected now. I was playing a lot of that collection because it was one of the last gifts I had gotten before he
Mhm.
died. So I gotten that gift for Christmas, right? And then he
Yeah,
died January 20th. So that was like the only
that's
thing I was pouring my heart into were these
yeah.
games.
That's so interesting. I'll have to think about that.
Yeah.
There's none that spring to mind, but I'm pretty sure.
I think
Like,
we
there's
could come
got to
up
be
with stuff.
some.
Yeah. I am the queen of sad stuff, so I can drudge it up in you, no doubt.
Mhm.
But yeah, there are some games around that time where Gabriel Knight is a big one too. That was definitely helping me through some stuff.
This is gonna put me into this is gonna put me into a thoughtful place that's not going to be interesting for discussion until I've completed the thoughts.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a good idea, and I think we should talk about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Um, do you have any other parting words about Sanitarium before
I
we say
just
goodbye to our listeners?
I just really recommend it. Like, I know we criticized it. It's just
Mhm.
one of those things that if you like a bad horror movie because it's giving you the vibe that you need, I think
Yeah.
I think Sanitarium can do that. I really do. It's a little incohesive in parts, but I think it is worth playing as a classic adventure game. I think it deserves to be there, with your King's Quests and your Space Quests and all that, and your
I do too.
LucasArts. Yeah.
I think it
Yeah.
definitely belongs there, and I think it was also an era where adventure games weren't. We've talked about this era,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it is always a shame to refer to it in this way. But it's
Yeah.
an era where adventure games weren't very good.
It was one of
um,
the last kind of okay ones, things were turning into 3D. Grim Fandango came out the same year, 1998,
yeah,
and then you
and
don't see many beyond that are
I mean,
remembered.
even before that, 97
Oh,
had
yeah.
97 had Riven and um Broken Sword 2 and Curse of Monkey Island. So it's not like there was nothing, but it
But
was
it
a
was on its way out for
it was a
sure.
big decline in
Yeah.
what had been around before, and there was becoming a lot of types of adventure games that just sucked so bad.
Yeah.
And then 98 was sort of kind of getting towards the end, and then sort of 99 till what, mid
Oh god.
2000s. It
Even
was
maybe even more than that, to be honest. We were
late
kind of
2000s. Yeah.
it was
It's
pretty
like
bad.
it's like almost nothing that you want to play besides the
Yeah.
freeware like AGS space, and a lot of that's
Sure.
not great either. But besides like some people making really interesting fan games like
Yeah.
or indie games that were free. Um yeah, this was sort of the end. This is sort of the very end. So I can see it really sticking in fans' memories.
Absolutely, it sticks because you know why?
Mhm.
Because it felt like with Sanitarium and Grimm that even though they did do kind of that 3D thing, it felt like there was hope a little bit. Like those games are good. They
Then Escape
weren't
from Monkey Island came out 2 years later, and you're like, "Oh, never mind."
I like that game, but I understand why it declined. Like 100%.
Mhm.
So like we had some hope there. And then nothing.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
just
yeah.
goes down completely. So you are right in that, I think a lot of this being a cult classic is because it was one of the last ones that I think people might have really connected with or really
Mhm.
enjoyed, just like Grim Fandango.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, because 'cause I'm looking at this, like, the list right now that I have, and it's like Longest Journey
Yeah,
was the next year.
that's
Gabriel
pretty
Knight
liked.
3 was the next year.
Ugh.
Yeah, which has really you have really mixed reactions to.
Definitely.
Then Escape from Monkey Island, and then and then I don't have another thing and I'm scrolling through pretty fast.
Yeah.
But there's not another thing that sticks out to me as like, oh, people love that, until Siberia in 2002, which again is kind of a problem. Oh, Discworld Noir was also in that time.
Yeah. I think people were kind of slowly forgetting about adventure games by the time Discworld Noir really came out. That's a cult classic too, though. People like it.
Broken Sword 3 hit in 2003 and everyone hated it.
Oof. Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah, and there's just like a desert here for years.
Yep. Yeah, I didn't play games for a really long time.
The Frogwares Sherlock Holmes games start coming out, which are pretty controversial.
So much controversy in adventure gaming.
So that is Sanitarium, guys. Everybody, thank you for hanging out with us for an hour talking adventure games. We have been brought to you by us and only us and all of ourselves, and you can email us at mattandroses@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram at Save Your Game Podcast. You can what else can they do?
You still always seem to end that with an inflection of questioning.
Yeah, I still don't remember. I never remember. Not once have I remembered. Every
Save Your Game Podcast on Instagram.
You should be the one who says it then.
Apparently. Yeah, apparently.
What else? What else do we want to tell people?
I have actually something really important to tell people that maybe they're not aware of.
Oh, wait, hold on. I do have something legitimately important to tell people. I'm going to get political I'm going to get semi-political just for a second.
Oh, God.
There's some, I mean, things kind of suck right now, right? We all know it.
They fucking suck.
Here's some things that if you want, you can do. I don't know how widespread these boycotts are, but the thing that you still have power over is where you spend your money, and showing people that their actions can result in extreme losses of money is the most powerful, literally the most powerful thing you can do, even if you just do it for a day or a week. So on February 28th, there is a nationwide economic blackout for if you can just for one day survive on the food in your fridge, don't eat out, try not to travel too many places, like don't spend anything. You can do it. Everyone can do it for one day. February 28th is an economic blackout. March 7th through 14th is an Amazon boycott. Even if you're going to resubscribe again later, which you probably shouldn't, but some people do. Some people really want to. Even if you're going to subscribe again later, for March 7th to 14th, just cancel your Amazon Prime. Don't buy from Amazon. Don't watch Amazon TV. Just for a week. You can do this too, I promise. Just for a week.
I have something that people can watch instead.
Please.
My YouTube channel, youtube.com/PushingUpRoses. Yay! You don't have to pay for it. It is completely free. And it's probably more entertaining than anything you'll find anywhere else, which is big words, but I stick by them.
I'll say if you watch Amazon TV a lot and you're looking for something to watch that week, there's an app called Dropout.tv that has a bunch of cool comedy stuff on it. Nice. Really cool indie comedians who are basically put together their own little TV network. And there's a show on there called Very Important People where improv comedians get dressed up in makeup that they haven't seen. They keep their eyes closed the whole time they're in the makeup chair. And then they wake up, look in the mirror, come up with a character, and then get interviewed on a talk show.
Oh, that's cool. I love that.
Very cool. Paul F. Tompkins was just on it. It's very, very good. So I'll talk about these these blackouts and these boycotts just a little bit at every episode for the next month or two. But right now, February 28th, economic blackout. March 7th to 14th, Amazon boycott. And that's my soapbox.
Also, this is incredible. I canceled Netflix. We all know why. We all know why. It's the
We
hot
know
frosty
why.
situation. We know what happened there. I'm
It
just
was
saying.
a real hot frosty situation.
It was a hot frosty situation. But who needs Netflix or anything when all the Lifetime thriller movies are uploaded to YouTube for free?
Okay.
What you want to? No.
Okay.
These Lifetime thrillers, man. I've watched like 20 of them. So I'm just putting that out there for y'all. You don't want to spend money and you want to watch something questionable? There you go.
So those are our cool cultural and political recommendations.
I'm helpful.
For the moment. So anyway, I'm so sorry. I interrupted you when you were, I know you were going to say something really, really important. And like, if you need to take a little cry for a second because I interrupted your really important
That's
speech,
okay. The Lifetime thing was pretty fucking important.
Okay, all right, good.
I'm glad that people know that you can watch those for free.
Uh-huh.
But actually, what I was gonna say is that podcast is art.
Oh, podcast is art. Well, artists suffer.